Henri Charrière sat motionless in the courtroom, his eyes fixed on the judge who pronounced the verdict, guilty of murder, sentenced to life imprisonment. At just 25 years old, Charrière could scarcely comprehend the weight of the sentence. He had been accused of a crime he didn't commit, the murder of a wealthy woman he had never met. Desperately, he protested his innocence, but his words were lost. There would be no trial for the truth. The decision had already been made. Condemned to life, he was bound for a punishment far worse than prison, the French penal colonies. The ship that carried him to the remote jungles of French Guiana was a floating nightmare. Packed with hundreds of prisoners from across the world, the vessel was a brutal, disease-ridden hell. For weeks, Charrière endured cramped quarters, overwhelming heat, and the constant stench of sweat and sickness. The conditions were unbearable, but what truly haunted him was the realization that he was being sent to a place where few ever left alive. There would be no mercy there, only hard labor and isolation in a land where the jungle seemed to swallow men whole. When Charrière and the other prisoners finally arrived, they were marched through the dense, suffocating jungle to their new home, a penal colony that felt more like a death sentence. The air was thick with the smell of decay, and the heat was oppressive. The guards were brutal, wielding whips to drive the prisoners to work long hours under the blazing sun. The prisoners labored under the most excruciating conditions, clearing land, building roads, enduring the relentless bite of disease-carrying insects, and fighting off malaria, dysentery, and starvation. Many perished within days, and those who survived were left broken physically, mentally, and spiritually. In this desolate place, Charrière met Louis Degas, a frail man whose gentle nature stood in stark contrast to the cruelty of their surroundings. Degas was a forger, a man of intellect rather than physical strength, and it was his companionship that provided Charrière with a glimmer of hope. Though Degas had no interest in escape, his kindness became a source of solace in the hellish environment. The two men formed a deep bond, sharing stories, dreams, and, ultimately, their plans for freedom. To Charrière, escape was no longer a hope, it was an obsession. The first attempt at escape was born from desperation. One night, Charrière seized the opportunity to break free. He ran through the dense jungle, the sounds of the guards' pursuit growing fainter as he pushed onward. But the jungle, far more treacherous than he anticipated, quickly betrayed him. He was caught and dragged back to the prison. The punishment was swift and severe. Solitary confinement awaited him, a small, airless cell where he was left in darkness for days. Yet even in that suffocating isolation, his resolve remained unshaken. He would escape again. He would not die here. As the years dragged on, Charrière's life in the colony became a cycle of labor, punishment, and fleeting moments of hope. Every failed attempt at escape was met with harsher consequences, but it only made him more determined. His body grew weaker, but his mind remained sharp, constantly plotting the next escape. Through it all, Degas remained by his side, offering comfort and support in the darkest times. Together, they clung to the belief that freedom was possible. Then Charrière was sent to the infamous Devil's Island, an isolated rock off the coast of French Guiana, reserved for the most dangerous prisoners. It was a place where men were kept in complete isolation, deprived of human contact, and subjected to the worst conditions imaginable. Charrière's new cell was tiny, filthy, and unbearably hot. Every day the guards grew more brutal, and the heat from the sun and the lack of food slowly drained him of his strength. Yet even in this hell, Charrière refused to surrender. His spirit, though battered, was unbroken. He would escape. He had to. One night, after years of planning and waiting, Charrière seized his chance. With the help of a few fellow prisoners, he slipped past the guards and into the jungle once more. This time, there was no turning back. The escape was perilous, the jungle vast and unforgiving. But Charrière pressed on, driven by the thought of freedom. Days turned into weeks, and the prisoners dodged traps, snakes, and the ever-present threat of the guards. At times, Charrière felt his strength falter, but the thought of freedom pushed him onward. After what seemed like an eternity, Charrière and his companions reached the coast. There, they found a small boat that would carry them across the ocean to freedom. The journey was fraught with danger, but it brought them to Venezuela, where Charrière could finally breathe free air. For the first time in years, he stood on solid ground, feeling the weight of the years lift off his shoulders. He was free, but even in freedom, Charrière knew he would never be the same. The man who had entered the penal colonies, broken and desperate, had been forged by suffering into something else, a man unbreakable. Though his body had endured the horrors of the prison system, it was his spirit that had truly been tested. He was no longer the naive young man who had been sentenced to a life in prison. The years had hardened him, but they had also shown him the power of hope and the strength of the human will. Henri Charrière, the man they had called Papillon, had escaped. In doing so, he had not only reclaimed his freedom but also his humanity. Through all the suffering, all the isolation, and all the brutality, he had remained true to himself, unbroken and unbowed. His journey was one of ultimate survival, a testament to the resilience of the human spirit in the face of unimaginable adversity. If you enjoyed this incredible story of resilience and survival, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more powerful tales from history. Henri Charrière's journey on Papillon is a testament to the strength of the human spirit. What part of the story inspired you the most? Let us know in the comments below.